with graphing, okay? And so with graphing, it only works for certain problems. Were there some problems you remember graphing and you had to graph like y equals 1.5x plus 35, but the graph I gave you only went up to like 10? It was a little frustrating, right? Okay. And so there are 3 ways to solve a system. We've learned graphing. Today we're going to learn substitution, and next week we're going to learn elimination. And what you're going to learn by the end of all 3 of these is when I place a system of equations in your lap, you're going to be able to say, oh, the best way to solve that one would be substitution. And then the next one, the best way might be elimination. But right now you don't know the difference between those. So today we're going to talk about how to solve substitution right from the get-go. Okay? And then eventually you're going to get to choose which way seems best to you based on the format that it's in. So that's kind of our objective. Okay, so we're going to kind of equate this to different levels. So a level 1 substitution problem is really simple. Just like level 1 video games are the same. They're pretty easy. Almost everybody can pass this level without much hassle. So if I give you x equals -1 and y equals -2x plus 7 and ask you to solve the system. So the first thing we need to think about is this, okay? Solving a system, and I'm not giving you anything fancy on this lesson. And by fancy, I mean all but one of your answers are going to be nice, perfect whole numbers, okay? Only one of them is going to be a decimal. And I'm not giving you any special cases yet, meaning there's going to be no, oh, they're parallel, they'll never meet. Oh, they're the same line, they're infinitely many. None of those. So every answer you're looking for today, you're looking for an x and you're looking for a y. So pretty straightforward today, okay? So the first thing I look at is if I'm looking for an x and I'm looking for a y, this is a level 1 because they are flat out gifting you half of your answer. They're telling you, hey, by the way, the x value is -1. Now all you have to do is use substitution to find what the y value is. So you are taking the fact that this x value is -1 and you're putting it right there. And you're multiplying it by -2 and you're adding 7 and there's your y. Ta-da. So y is going to equal whatever -2 times the x value is that they gave you. And then your y is equal to 2 plus 7, which means your y value is 9 when your x value of -1 was given. Okay? That is a level 1. Pretty simple. Okay? I'm not even going to do another level 1 example. I think you got it, right? Could they have come right out? Now, here's probably what you were thinking. You probably were thinking, oh, okay, I got to graph this, so I got to get a graph paper out. I have to graph x equals -1. I have to graph y equals -2x plus 7. Okay, so I better extend this. And then this is going to be up to, no, you don't have to do that anymore today. We already did graphing. You know how to do it, but you don't need to. If I were to graph it, does it look like it might have met somewhere at -1, 9 up there? Yeah. So eventually, I'm going to give you a problem, and there's going to be 3 columns on it. And it's going to say, here's your system. Solve it by graphing, solve it by substitution, solve it by elimination. Oh, and by the way, you better get the same answer 3 times because there's 3 different ways to solve a system, okay? We are now learning the second one. Level 1, check. So let's talk about level 2. A level 2 looks like this. It's a couple different variations of it. So the first equation they're going to give you might be 2x equals y minus 1. And y equals 3 would be a level 1. That little x is a game changer. It changes everything. Okay, so now let's talk about this. If my goal is to find an x and a y, number 1, were either one flat out given? No. So this is where the game begins. So now I need to know is there's an x here and a y here, an x here and a y there. I have 2 equations and 2 variables in each. Is one equation and one variable already solved for? Meaning already by itself. So what I'm going to do is highlight that variable and say, awesome. That is mission number 1. This y is already by itself, which is why it's only a level 2 instead of a level 5, which we're going to get up to. And when this happens, I take that 3x, which is y, by the way, and I plug it into the other equation. But where do I put it? Do I put it in for this or that? I put it in for the y, even though it has an x in it. That's the weirdest part. People are so tempted to put it here because it has an x. But does it say x equals 3x? No. The whole y value is 3x. Got it? So I am taking that y value and putting it right there. And this is going to give me 2x is equal to 3x minus 1. A wonderful review. What do we do here? We have to do what? Get all the x's on one side. That's going to give me negative 1x or just negative x. And then once you do this, you should be good from here. So what is your x coordinate here? 1. Okay. So now back up a second. Your instinct is going to be to stop there and then move on to the next question because you just found your answer. You actually found half of your answer, didn't you? So you know what the x coordinate is, so fill it in. And the step for finding the second unknown is the same as what we did in level 1. Once you know one of them, you can use that x to find the y. Or if you know y first, then you could use the y to find the x. And here's the beautiful part about what's about to happen. It doesn't matter which equation you use. You can't go wrong. I'm going to either put one here or here. Now, is there one that looks a little easier than the other? Yeah. If I need to figure out what y is, all I need to do is put 1 there, and 3 times 1 is 3. Could I still get 3 if I wanted to put it here and then add 1 to both sides? Yeah, I could. But it's just a pain in the butt, and I wouldn't bother with it. So are you good with what makes it a level 2? Okay, I'm going to show you one more type of level 2, which would be this. So let's take y is equal to 3x plus 2, and x plus 2y equals 11. Okay? It already looks a little bit trickier. Let me just kind of say this. If this wasn't here, that would be a level 1. With that here, it's level 2, but now I have a whole expression. So what is y? This whole thing. And so what do I do with that whole expression, 3x plus 2? I put it in the other equation for y. So if I had to get a highlighter out, it's still a level 2 because my y is ready. One of my equations is ready to go. So I'm going to take that, put it in for there, and then just a little something weird's going to happen. You're going to have to know what to do. All that time we spent on equations at the beginning of the year is going to come in handy. So if you are like a master equation solver, so what is y? It's this whole thing. And so now what do? I distribute, I combine, I solve. So I'm going to leave the x, right? I'm distributing that negative 2, not only to the 3x, but to the 2 also. And then 3x plus 1x is 4x. Oh, what did I do wrong here? Hold on. 3x plus 2. Oh, here's what I did wrong. Because I promised you I was giving you whole number answers. So what should that be? That should be 6x. Yeah, that should be 6x, which means what? That should be what? 7x, which is going to give me minus 4. 7x is equal to, hey, I'm actually really glad that happened because I promised you all but one are going to work out to be whole numbers. So I saw that my answer was going to be a fraction. If you're working these out today and you get a fraction, you have to go back and relook at your work because that's a way to tell you, okay, she told me they were going to be whole numbers. So that's kind of how I knew I was talking and writing it too fast. So I got half of my answer. I know that my x value is 1. And what do I do to find my y? I use substitution. I pick one of the two equations. I put a 1 in for x. I'm picking this one because I don't have to do any solving. All I got to do is put it in here times 3 plus 2. So what's that going to give you for your y? 5 when x is 1. Are you okay with a level 2? Okay, I'm going to show you one more type of level 2. Okay, level 2 could also look like this. X equals 3 minus 8y, or y equals 2x minus 1. Well, if your goal is to get one of the equations solved for one of its variables, remember how I highlighted the y before? You could look at this and you can go, oh, shoot. The x and the y is already solved for. So that means you have options. You are either, option 1 is taking the x and putting it in there, or what would option 2 be? Taking the y and putting it in the other equation for the y. You're going to get the same answer. Here you're just going to be solving for y first, and here you're going to be solving for x first. So if you and your friend are working on the same problem and you started it 2 different ways, when you go to fill in this point, you will have found the x first and your friend will have found the y, just backwards. Hello. Sure, no problem. Yep, bye. Dominic, they need you in the office, okay? All right, so let's just show you option 1. Option 1 would be take this whole thing and shove it in there, okay? So your whole 3x minus 8y will go there, and then you'll distribute and solve for y, okay? If you chose to do it this way, your whole y will go there, and you'll have x equals 3 minus 8 times the whole y. And then here you'll have solved for x first. Got it? I'm not going to finish this. This just kind of, the hardest part about substitution is just setting it up. Once you get it to the equations, like you should fly through these equations. Okay, so what makes it a level 1 or a level 2? Either half the answer is already given, okay? Or one of the equations already has one of their variables solved for. One equation has one variable already solved for, meaning by itself. Okay. Which then, I'm assuming you can figure out what a level 3 and a level 4 is, right? A level 3 looks like this. A level 3 says, okay, x minus 2y equals negative 6, and 4x plus 6y equals 4. So, if I pick my highlighter up and I'm about to highlight something that's already by itself, there's nothing to highlight. Because this x is not alone, neither is this y or this x or this y. So all I have to do is get one of them alone. And I get to choose which one. Now, this is where you either make things really easy on yourself or you make a ton of work for yourself. And I know you don't want a ton of work. So does anybody see any variable that's kind of standing out? Like, pick me, Andrew? Yes, so that's what you're going to say to me. The first equation, I would solve for x. Why? Explain. Because there's no coefficient. And when I solve this equation for x, all I do is add 2y to both sides and I am ready to go. Do you understand? So if I turn this equation, if I were to take this 2y and add it to both sides, I then have x is equal to 2y minus 6, and now I am highlighter ready. Do you understand? If I would have chosen to do this, that's okay. That could have worked. I could have done negative 2y is equal to negative x minus 6, and then I would have divided by 2, and you know what that would have left me with? A fraction, which isn't like totally unworkable, but when you got to go plug this in, do you want to multiply? You don't want to do it, okay? So pick the easy one, and the easy one is always going to be the one without a coefficient. Okay, so maybe you want to write something in your notes about look for the one with a I don't want to say no coefficient, with a coefficient of 1. Does that make more sense? Look for the variable with a coefficient equal to 1. That way you don't have to divide. And dividing makes fractions. So now, guess what I'm going to do? Watch, this is kind of important. I have updated this equation to a new and improved version of itself. So I kind of don't really need the old one anymore. So I want to put a little squiggle through it. Okay? Bless you. So I am going to take this whole expression, which I'm calling x, and putting it all the way into the other equation. Hey, you want to know why that little squiggle comes in handy? I've seen kids rewrite this equation, solve it for x, and then they go back and they put it right here. You can't put it in its own equation. You have to put it in the other equation. So now I have 4 times x plus 6y equals 4. Another reason why crossing it off comes in handy, I am not kidding you. Watch what I do. As a kid, when you're doing your work, your eyes are bouncing back and forth from what you're writing to up here, to what you're writing to up here. How many times have I seen kids write this and then instead of putting equal 4, they put equal -6? They grabbed this part from this equation, but when their eyes looked back up here, they grabbed the -6 from the other equation. Immediately your answer's wrong, like without a chance, right? So that little squiggle kind of is like, all right, I don't want my eyes going there anymore. And so then you just put in your 2y minus 6. So go ahead, let's just kind of, once you get to this point, you should be able to kind of cruise through this. Okay? 8y plus 6y. And this is going to be beautiful because it's going to give you 28 over here. And I told you all but one are going to give you nice answers. So now I found out that my y coefficient of where these two equations meet is 2. Now be careful. I feel like this is the first equation we've solved where we found our y first. Where does that go in my answer? In the first or the second spot? Well, it's y. So it goes in the second spot. Okay, am I done? No, I have half of an answer. Now that I know what y is, the name of the game is substitution. Put it in, guess what? That's why I didn't completely cross this out, because I can still put it here if I want. I have 3 equations to choose from now, wherever I put that. But why don't I use this one? Because x is already solved for. Put 2 right there, and 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 minus 6 is -2. Are you good on a level 3? Okay, so do you understand what that level 3 means? Okay, sometimes can a level 3 turn into a level 1? Yes, watch, I'll show you. So if I have, say, just 3y equals -12, and 2x minus y equals, say, 8, this looks a little weird because this equation's missing an x, okay? So I could just do what? If I could either choose to solve this equation for y, but it has a negative in front of it, and I'd have to divide by -1. Why don't I just divide both sides by 3 here? Watch what happens when I divide both sides by 3. Bless you. Oh, that was a hiccup, not a sneeze. I get y equals -4. And now it's a level 1. They gave me they kind of gave me half my answer. I had to hunt a little bit for it. So y is -4. And to find x, plug it in there. Well, there's only one, or actually I could plug it in here. No, I can't. Sorry, that's it. Yeah. So if I were to plug this in here 3 times, I got to solve for x. So I'm going to put 2x minus, what is y? Be careful on that double -1. So you got 2x plus 4 equals 8. I'm flying through this because you guys should be doing this in your sleep by end of April. 2, x is 2 when y is -4. Are we ready for level 4? And then we're about done. Okay? All right, that was a level 3. A level 4 looks like this. -6x minus 3y equals 15. And 4x plus 3y equals negative 11. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. See if you can kind of figure out why this makes it a little bit harder. It's not the hardest one. I'm going to show you a level 5 after this. I don't think you're going to see one level 5, I think. But first of all, neither equation has neither variable solved for. And not only on top of that, one of the equations, and they all have coefficients. So guess what coefficient means? You're going to have to divide. Okay. Anybody have an idea if they were to choose which equation and which variable that you would choose? Because I'm telling you, there is one really easy one. The other three are going to create a disaster for you. Evan, what would you do?
I would do the first equation, negative 3y.
Yes. Okay, Evan says, I'm going to do this one right here, and I'm going to agree with him. Do you want to explain why?
Because both 6 and 15 are divisible by 3.
Perfect answer. Did you hear that? He says, if I have a coefficient that I'm eventually going to divide by, I want to make sure this number goes evenly into, which is divisible, by the other, by the one I'm about to divide by. Okay? Let me show you what he means. So when I add 6x to this side and this side, I'm going to get negative 3y is equal to 6x plus 15. And when I go to do this, 3 goes into that, 3 goes into that, and it's a beautiful day because I have no fractions to deal with. Okay, this gives me negative 2x minus 5. And now when I go to plug this into y in the other equation, by the way, this one has been rewritten, so I don't really want to look at it anymore. Go ahead.
You skipped the negative on the 6 when you rewritten the problem.
For this one?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay, got it? Okay, no, good. Good guy, though. So I added it. So now I don't have to deal with fractions, right? Okay. So then you know what you would do from here, right? You would take this y and you'd plug it in there. Let me show you why the other three options are not good options, okay? If you choose any of the other three, it becomes a level 5. Watch. If I were to say, okay, I'm just going to take this equation and solve it for x. So you didn't realize that there was the nice shortcut. You add 3y to both sides. You would have a negative 6x equals 3y plus 15. And when you went to divide by negative 6, you'd have a half, which isn't really bad. But then that's going to give you something, and then you're going to have to deal with decimals. Notice I didn't say fractions. Because would you rather distribute decimals and use a calculator or do fractions in your head? I would rather do decimals, okay? So is everybody okay with a level 4? Okay, so a level 4, you have to pick which one is the best option. Let me show you what I mean by this. If this is negative 6x minus 8y, and then this will be it, equals 15, and this is 4x plus 3y, so basically the same problem, except let's say that 3 was an 8. Dang, like there went my one only good option. Then it kind of doesn't matter which one you choose because you're going to get a decimal either way. So let's just say you decide to divide by this. You solve for this y. First equation y. You're going to have negative 8y is equal to positive 6x plus 15. Divide by negative 8. And you know what you're going to have? You're going to have y is equal to negative 0.75x because 6/8 is 3/4. And then 8 goes in there that many times, and you're going to have a negative 1.875. Ooh, it's not pretty, but it's better than dealing with fractions. And so now I'm going to put this whole thing into the other equation for y. Are you good? So this is the 4 levels of, actually the 5 levels. So of the problems that I'm giving you today,